Gardens of Sanctuary. It's not something I've talked about for a little while actually, so I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, as Alison said, I was involved in kind of setting it up initially. Just a little bit of background. So I've worked for Social Farms and Gardens for almost 6 years now actually, and doing a variety of roles. And one of them being sort of setting up the Gardens of Sanctuary. And I'm really aware that there's quite a few people who maybe aren't that familiar with the work that we do. So, and that's really nice to have some new people. So we are, as Social Farms and Gardens, we're the kind of national charity and membership organisation representing a really broad range of groups who use nature, food, farming to bring people together, basically. So you might loosely term that as the community growing sector, but it can encompass care farms, city farms, community gardens, community allotments, there's community vineyards. So basically anywhere where groups of people are coming together on land and using kind of food growing nature to engage people around them and the community. And we now have around about, I think it's 1900 members across the UK. So yeah, we're a UK-wide charity. We've got members on Scottish Islands, over in Northern Ireland, you know, lots and lots in Wales as well as England. So there's lots going on. And we were founded in 1980. So we actually turned 40 last year. What a year. As Alison said, so I did some of the initial Gardens of Sanctuary work, and I authored the report and the resource pack that we'll talk about a little bit later in partnership with Ben Margolis, who was one of Nikki's colleagues at City of Sanctuary. And my background is that I also set up and ran a community garden for more than 10 years. So yeah, my background very much is in kind of growing in the community. And I kind of just wanted to add a little caveat right at the beginning that whenever we deliver Gardens of Sanctuary training, we always run out of time because it's such a huge subject. So yeah, this is very much an introduction to some of the material and the resources. And yeah, but there is a lot to go through. And I'm really interested to sort of talk a bit more about it and see what questions people have for us at the end. So yeah, I'll hand over to Nikki.
Hiya, so my name is Nikki and I'm the Regional Coordinator for City of Sanctuary UK. Alison, could we have the next slide, if that's possible? So I have worked for City of Sanctuary now for about 2.5 years, and I am the South and Southwest Regional Coordinator, which means I support City of Sanctuary groups in the South and Southwest of England. From Chichester in the east to Cornwall in the west. So it's quite a wide area in the south of England. And from March last year, I've also taken the lead on our Gardens of Sanctuary stream for City of Sanctuary, working alongside Sophie. And we've been looking forward to doing this webinar for quite some time. So I'm really pleased we've been able to get it organised for today. And so City of Sanctuary UK, obviously there'll be people here who are part of City of Sanctuary groups. I recognise some names in the chat and things, but also there'll be people here who maybe aren't so familiar with us either. So we are a national charity that aims to create and promote the concept of welcome and belonging for people seeking sanctuary. And we use the term people seeking sanctuary because we prefer not to refer to people by their sort of legal immigration status. That's quite a dehumanizing thing. But for those of you who maybe aren't so familiar, that would encompass people who have claimed asylum and gone through that process, maybe have refugee leave to remain or some other form of protection. But it's quite a wide term that sort of encompasses that people who have been through that sort of wider immigration process. As I said, we prefer to think of people as people first, not just their immigration status. So across the UK, we have a network of 120 City of Sanctuary groups. And a City of Sanctuary group, contrary to the title, doesn't have to be a city. So we have City of Sanctuary groups that are in towns, villages, boroughs, counties, but we use sort of the overarching umbrella term of a City of Sanctuary group to encompass those. And it's a growing network. We frequently do public meetings to talk to potential new groups and new areas of interest. And we have quite a broad spread of groups across all nations of the UK. We also, in addition to having our groups, one of our main pieces of work is on our streams of sanctuary. So streams of sanctuary are areas of work where we work either ourselves or with partners to think about and promote the concept of sanctuary in organisations in different sectors. So, for example, this can include universities, schools and colleges, various arts organisations, health, public services of different kinds, sports, and also gardens. And obviously, we were really pleased to be working with Social Farms and Gardens on this project. And within those streams, we have people who are interested in getting involved in the work that we do, who are interested in promoting the culture of welcome, but also organisations that want to be recognised for the work that they are doing or they have started to do and will continue to grow. And we host an award scheme for each of our streams of sanctuary, where people can have their organisation recognised for the work that they're doing. And I will go into a little bit more detail on that later on. Obviously, we have, as Sophie's referenced, this is very much a short introduction, and we will have more information and resources available to all of you after today's session. So I think I'm handing back to Sophie at this point.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Nikki. Yeah, next slide, please, Alison. So I thought it would be useful to just give a really brief little bit of background, I guess, into the origins of the programme, just because I think it helps sort of put it into context. So as I said, my background was I used to run a community garden, and I actually met Ben, who's now left City of Sanctuary, but Nikki's former colleague, because he used to run a programme over in Norfolk, who worked with almost entirely survivors of torture and refugees and asylum seekers. So it's a land-based project, but very, very different to the type of very open community garden that I was running. And I learnt so much from kind of experiencing what the Grange did. And I also in that time was going over and doing a little bit of volunteering in the refugee camps over in sort of Calais and Dunkirk. And it made me really reflect on kind of what we were doing within our community garden. So thinking that we were very, very open, and then actually realizing that there was a huge amount that we didn't know about. I didn't know about the asylum system. I didn't know the reality of, you know, what people's lives were like when they were coming in to the country as sanctuary seekers, and really didn't know, you know, how I could go about making those people genuinely feel kind of welcome within the environment that I was managing. And, you know, so when Ben and I spent some time talking about this, really recognizing, well, one, the amazing benefits that I'll go through of sort of for people generally, not just sanctuary seekers, but for people spending time in green spaces and in nature and how therapeutic that can be. And so for me, working for a national organization like Social Farms and Gardens, and Ben working for City of Sanctuary, also a national charity, we're like, there is amazing potential here, you know, in this partnership to create something really special. So we, over about a period of a year, did a lot of research, and that culminated in us launching, which is where this photo is from. We launched the resource pack and the report and some case studies that I'll go through in a little while in November 2018, which just feels like an absolute lifetime ago now. So yeah, that's kind of the background. Next slide, please. So yeah, as I said, we really felt that this partnership had such amazing potential, and our kind of vision, as it were, was to create this network of green spaces that can be all kinds of different spaces, really different, but that have this shared culture of welcome for people who've come to this country seeking sanctuary. We also felt that it was really important to be doing this visibly, and, you know, to be combating some of the terribly negative attitudes, prejudice that we see so much of in the media. You know, we have the hostile immigration policy, so some of it's coming directly from government, from the Home Office, and that can be so detrimental and damaging to people who are coming here. And so we felt like it was really important to have that kind of visible refugees are welcome in these spaces. And so kind of creating that like almost branding and badging it up in that way so that people could go through the accreditation process and then be really proud in sort of visibly saying, no, we welcome everybody here, and you are welcome here. So we felt like that was really important. And it felt like a really great opportunity to help the gardens and green spaces within our membership start looking at and identifying what barriers to engagement there might be. And that's not just for sanctuary seekers, that could be from people from different backgrounds, from different cultures, that have different abilities. So that's a really useful process to go through generally. So we felt like putting some training together and resources on that would be really beneficial. And it also to just increase, as a result of that, increase the diversity in our sector. You know, the community growing sector, particularly in rural areas, is still quite white and really middle class. I think, yeah, so doing anything that we can do to make sure that we are as welcoming as possible felt like a really positive step forward. So that's kind of why we, why we were sort of setting up the programme initially. Next slide, please, Alison. And I wanted to kind of go through, I guess, why gardens are such amazing spaces, and I really appreciate that I'm probably preaching to the converted here in many instances, but you know, there is such a huge body of evidence. We all know that gardening and green spaces are naturally good for us and therapeutic, but there is this massive body of academic literature now demonstrating that. So yeah, it's just good for us. They can, within community growing settings, that they can provide invaluable connections with other people, with community, and that's particularly relevant now when, you know, so many of us have been isolated, but when people have come from very disrupted and chaotic and often very traumatic backgrounds, having those new links to positive, supportive members within a new community that they find themselves can be really, really important in sort of starting out with a new life. Really basic things as well, you know. I mean, if you look in the report and the resource pack, we'll go through just how little money is allocated to people who are within the asylum system. So there is huge issues around kind of poverty and food poverty, and frankly lots of our members grow vegetables, and so, you know, it's just a lovely way to potentially have access to free or low cost healthy produce, so that can be a real benefit for people coming to community growing spaces. And one thing that I've heard an awful lot is that you know, gardens and the act of growing can connect people back. So for people who have been traumatized through whatever reason, you know, we've heard time and time again people growing will say, oh, you know, this takes me back to my childhood, or this reminds me of my grandmother, and it can kind of help connect back to some past memories that are positive. Gardens also can provide an opportunity to grow plants from the countries where people have come from, so giving opportunity to kind of share some of their knowledge. And I think that's something that we would always want to kind of promote. You know, this isn't welcoming people who've sought sanctuary isn't a charitable act. People, it's such an opportunity to share in the skills that they're bringing and the different perspectives and different cultures. So yeah, it can be a really wonderful thing to learn different, whether it's different techniques or growing techniques, or languages, or yeah, there's a huge amount within the case studies where sanctuary seekers have brought real positive benefits to the spaces. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So that was a real kind of digested rattle through of yeah, some of the reasons why green spaces can be brilliant and therapeutic. And we put together these resources. There's a report, there's a resource pack, and there's actually 10 case studies. And so I would really recommend people kind of going through these. So I'm just going to sort of explain a little bit about what's in them before I give the mic back over to Nikki to talk through the accreditation process. Because yeah, I think probably when kind of coming to this subject, people will have a lot of questions, and so I really hope that within sort of these resources there will certainly be the answers to a number of them. So the report, first of all, that is going to touch on a lot of the sort of definitions and legal technicalities that Nikki was talking about, you know, the reality of the asylum system in this country, some of the safeguarding implications, statistics, asylum statistics. You will often find that those are kind of misquoted in the press. We'll look at in that some of the challenges and barriers facing asylum seekers in this country, and then also go through some of the evidence for the benefits of gardening in community settings. And so I think it's a really important read, also really useful for people who might be looking to put any funding bids in to do some of this work, because there'll be some evidence there that you can refer to. Moving on, as I said, we've got 10 case studies, and those are from groups, member groups who are already working with refugees and asylum seekers in a real range of settings, and they were very, very generous with kind of talking through what was working for them, how they did the work that they're doing, and also what they found really difficult. So I think there's some real value in having a look through some of those. And then lastly, the resource pack. And so we put a lot of time and thought into doing this. So for anybody that's thinking about working with refugees and asylum seekers in the future, I would really recommend this as a starting point. And we've tried to do a number of things. We've tried to structure it in a way that enables people with, whether they're managing a green space or volunteering there, to use it as a tool to step back and look in a kind of slightly more holistic way at the group as you currently are, and then kind of identify areas that you might be able to develop or improve on, look at potential partnerships in your local area, and really kind of address some of the questions around kind of working with refugees and asylum seekers in a very kind of measured way that you can easily work through. And there's lots of suggestions and exercises in there. So yeah, we're really pleased with them, and they are free to download. They're on our Social Farms and Gardens website under the resources. There is also a Gardens of Sanctuary kind of website hosted within the City of Sanctuary server. I'm going to say server, like I know all the technical terms. It's within the sort of City of Sanctuary internet world. So yeah, it's all there, and I think they were also linked to in the sort of booking link for this event as well, weren't they? So hopefully everybody's seen those, and if you've got any questions resulting from those, pop them in the chat and we'll come to them afterwards. Right, I'm going to hand back over to Nikki now to talk through the actual accreditation process that people can go through to become a Garden of Sanctuary.
And I think that what we've just heard from Sophie is very important, and it also shows why City of Sanctuary wants to work with partner organisations to deliver some of these streams, because I don't have the expertise around gardens, you know, in the same way that Social Farms and Gardens do, but to be able to hear another organisation talk as passionately about the work that we want to do as we do is always fantastic to hear. And I think that's why a lot of our streams of sanctuary can be very successful, because we're working with experts in the particular sector of that stream, and it's why this partnership hopefully is a very fantastic thing. And I know how much work went in by Ben and Sophie and others into the resource pack, which is an absolutely fantastic read, and I definitely recommend it for anyone interested in getting involved. So I'm going to cover a little bit around sort of the actual process of being a Garden of Sanctuary, in terms of what that means for practical steps and what people might want to consider doing if you want to go down that route. I think the first and most important thing to say is that the award is sort of the outcome to recognise the work that people are doing. It's not the work itself. It's very much to recognise what's happening. So a lot of what Sophie has referred to in terms of what people can do and the benefits of what people do is that's the important bit. Having that work happening in local communities is essential and important for all the reasons that have already been outlined. And, you know, I'm not going to go back over those again, but the mental health benefits and the isolation people face, etc., all of that can be addressed by some of what we've talked about today, and some of the case studies in the resource pack and available on the websites are fantastic to read and show some really great work. So if people are interested in being involved in Gardens of Sanctuary and the Gardens of Sanctuary stream, you can do that regardless of whether you have gone for the award or not. The award is very much around the recognition. So, you know, you can sign up to, there's various contact details at the end of this presentation around Social Farms and Gardens and City of Sanctuary and the Gardens of Sanctuary website server, whatever we want to call it, that you can sign up to. And you're welcome to sign up to those, even if you are not at the stage of going for the award. You know, this isn't, the award is, as I said, the outcome. But we want to give people an overview of the award process so people can see what they can be recognised for as an organisation and what they might need to think about working on in order to ensure that their garden or open space, in whatever way that is, can fit the criteria to be recognised as a garden of sanctuary. So for City of Sanctuary, we have a standard award process that works across all of the different streams, but obviously the criteria that people need to meet are very tailored to the type of work that people are doing. So the criteria for schools is different to the criteria for theatres, is different to the criteria for gardens. So we have some specific things, but the general process is what's detailed on the slide here. So we talk about learn, embed and share as very much as part of our process. So for learning, what that means is to find out what it means to be seeking sanctuary and to be involved in awareness raising with participants in the wider community. And there's ways to do that, including linking up with refugee organisations and City of Sanctuary groups, having training happen at your organisation, and reading and disseminating the information from the resource pack, because a lot of that work is already there, a lot of the information you might need is already there, but it needs to be made available to people within the garden or the group that you're working with so that they have the opportunity to be involved in that learning. We then think about how to embed that. So we talk about taking positive action to make welcome part of the values of the organisation or group, and to offer an active welcome and opportunities for people seeking sanctuary, and the ability to include them at all levels of decision making. And in this context, that can mean looking at policies and procedures to ensure that things like safeguarding have been taken into account for people seeking sanctuary. It can involve running specific events or supported sessions to encourage people from different groups in the community to take part. There's events like Refugee Week that take place every June, and there's various other national events that happen that people can become involved in and host events in to bring people in and to ensure that your whole organisational group is aware of what's happening and some of the issues. To work in partnership with local groups, and to, where it's appropriate, create opportunities for volunteering and ways for people to get involved, particularly people with that lived experience of seeking sanctuary. And when we talk about sharing is very much helping to grow what we do and to bring that wider welcome into both your local community, but also into the sort of garden and open space sector, so that other people become more aware of our work. So that includes sharing your achievements. So if you're running events or hosting sessions, that they're publicised within your wider community, letting people know about the work that you're doing and the positive contribution people seeking sanctuary are making. And that can, you know, also involve working with your partners and other gardens and open spaces to tell them about Gardens of Sanctuary and to share that work. There's lots of different ways that the work can be shared, but it's important that people don't just look at what they're doing, but also to grow that across your community or the sector or both. Could I have the next slide, please, Alison? Thank you. So If you were looking at going for a Garden of Sanctuary award, there are actually only 3 essential criteria. The 3 essential criteria have been set at a very sort of baseline level because we recognise that within this sort of sector, there is quite a wide range of organisations. I've been following social farms and gardens on Facebook and things and seeing the range of organisations they're working with, that there isn't sort of a one-size-fits-all approach for gardens and open spaces. Everything is very different. So in terms of looking at Gardens of Sanctuary and the award process, what's been decided is to have 3 essential criteria and then give people the opportunity to sort of freestyle the rest of the application and put in what's relevant to them and to give more context and information about their specific setting under the headings of learn, embed and share. Because a farm and a garden and a small group that's doing some gardening, locally, they're going to have very different contexts. So the 3 essential criteria that need to be met are the active involvement of people seeking sanctuary. So that is that obviously it's vital that people seeking sanctuary are involved in the space in some way. That could be running activity events, open days, opportunities for volunteering. It can be that they are given the opportunity to share about their experiences where it's appropriate to do so. And we offer some information on our website around how that might work and where it would and wouldn't be appropriate. It could be offering dedicated sessions for people with that lived experience. And it can also be taking on real roles within the group or organisation, sort of as committees or with places of responsibility, so that they are included in what is happening. The second is looking at marking Refugee Week, which takes place the 3rd week of June, roughly every year. And it's a national annual celebration of the contribution of refugees, normally set around sort of World Refugee Day, which also happens in June. And there's ways you can get involved with Refugee Week, which include hosting an event at your space, supporting other events taking place in your area, and also using the opportunity to communicate about being a place of sanctuary, Gardens of Sanctuary, working towards the award, etc., through your website or social media or through local media. And the 3rd essential criteria is having a safeguarding system in place. And obviously that's pretty standard for most organisations. But what we would want to see within this is that there is a safeguarding policy in place that suits the types of activities and services you deliver, but also makes explicit why some volunteers or people taking part might be more vulnerable, and looking at what those vulnerabilities are, and that people are aware of how to support people who may come from this sort of have this lived experience of seeking sanctuary. And we have some examples and some suggestions in the literature provided, and we're happy to talk to people about these criteria as well to make sure that they are understood and you could be supported to achieve them. If you did decide you wanted to go for the awards, there is a structure to do that. We have an award application on the Gardens of Sanctuary website, and we have the ability to either submit that on paper or online. So there's different ways of completing it, but the template is pretty standard. And as I said, outside of demonstrating those 3 minimum criteria, you would then have the opportunity to give lots of information about what you're doing and what your organisation or group is doing to support people seeking sanctuary in a garden or open space. And then that application, once it's received, would be assessed by people with lived experience of seeking sanctuary, your local City of Sanctuary group, potentially someone from National City of Sanctuary or one of the partner organisations or groups we're working with, like Social Farms and Gardens, to make sure we have a wide range of opinions on that. And I would say I could go into a lot more detail about the awards process, but City of Sanctuary hosted an awards workshop, I think in January. My colleague Sarah, who's attending today, she was part of that. And if you were looking to go through the award process, that's available on our website, I believe, and that would probably be a good thing for you to watch before you submitted an award. I think that's the end of my slides. I'm not sure who I'm handing over. Handing over back to Alison at this point.
Thank you ever so much, Sophie and Nikki. That was a really fast-paced but fairly thorough introduction into the Gardens of Sanctuary and the wider process around using gardens and the process that people who are seeking sanctuary are going through. So thank you so much. Lovely. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing the webinar there. I was just about to say we'll share that in the follow-up email to the event, to this event as well, so that you've got access to that. But obviously, you know, Nikki said there, they've got an open door. So if you do need to contact her about anything in the future, then we'll make sure you've got contact details, and they're very willing and able to provide the information that you need. We've had a couple of questions so far. I was wondering, we also did actually have a poll that we didn't run at the beginning of the session. So I was wondering whether we might actually kick off with one of the questions from Rachel at AMC Gardens in Nottingham, who I know works in a very diverse part of Nottingham, and so will already be coming up with some of the barriers that are facing around working with people from different communities and different cultures around language, which is one of the questions that she's raised there. But one of the other questions is around understanding the process that people in the asylum system are going through. And I think what we would say, and what Nikki hinted at there with the learning process, is it's really good. That's a great question, Rachel. It's about having an understanding of the process, but not providing advice and guidance to people who are going through that system from your garden perspective, but knowing where they can go for additional support and teaming up with those other organisations that are specifically there ready to support refugees and asylum seekers and other people seeking sanctuary and seeking training that you can go through for your organisation. We do have a little poll, not to kind of belittle the process, that the asylum process, but just some of those key questions that are often asked or assumptions that are often made about people in the asylum system, or the experience of people going through the asylum system. So I'm just going to pop that up, hopefully, and just have a little look around. So we've got how many people claimed asylum in the UK last year, and you can just tick on the answer that you think might be correct there. What are asylum seekers not allowed to do, and what is the current rate of asylum support? Nikki, is that per person in the UK for a single person?
Yes.
Yeah, so it would be slightly different for a family, although maybe slightly. And Nikki's just going to go through the responses to them quickly, and then I'll raise Rachel's other questions. And please do pop any others that you have into the chat box and monitor that. Okay, that's a nice number of people voted there. Thank you. So, Nikki, do you want to just go through the responses to these?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So the people who selected option 2 on the first question were closest, because it was 29,456 asylum applications. And just for some context, there are 5 sort of top countries that those people had come from, which included Iran, Albania, Eritrea, Iraq, and Sudan. And over 50% of the people that claim asylum are either at initial decision or on appeal given refugee status or humanitarian protection. So over 50% of them achieve that status, the legal immigration status, and additional people qualify for other statuses. So it's well over 50% of those are given permission to remain in the UK by the Home Office through that immigration process.
And Nikki, sorry, can I just clarify? And that figure does fluctuate, doesn't it? Kind of, you know, over time. I know that when we were looking at statistics a couple of years ago, I think the approval rate was much lower. So historically, it can really vary. It
can, and I would say that there tends to be about, the Home Office decision rate and the court decision rate for people with negative decisions can vary, but the trend is that there's an upward trend of people receiving a positive decision as part of that process. So for the second question, most of you were aware that people claiming asylum are not allowed to work other than in specific circumstances, and they have to fit very specific criteria for that, and it's only for very particular jobs, so it's very challenging, and they also cannot claim any mainstream public benefits. And I think it's worth recognising that almost 50,000 people at the end of last year had been waiting for a decision for more than 6 months. So that's people who have not been able to work or claim mainstream benefits for more than 6 months, and are therefore sort of stuck in that limbo period of not being able to integrate with the world of work or anything like most people are able to for quite some considerable time. And then for the third and final question, again, most of you are aware that it works. It's answer number 3. It works out at just over £5 a day from the government to cover the cost of basic necessities, which is not very much money at all. So that was just for information to go through those. But most of you were already aware of the statistics, which is good to know.
Thanks, Nikki. Rachel's raised a question. It is Rachel actually from Gloucester, Fair Shares in Gloucester, so I do apologise. Multiple Rachels on the call, which is lovely. Language barriers. This is something that as guardians we often face anyway with people who may struggle to read English for multiple reasons. So we always advise trying to put signs up in as few words as possible and as images where you can. But Sophie, any other thoughts that came out of the research that you did for how we can try and encourage language not to be a barrier?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I know somebody put the suggestion of just like welcome signs in a variety of languages, and I think that kind of simple signage is really important because of the message that it sends. So you might not be translating very many words, but for somebody to be able to see even just the word welcome in their first language, it sends a message that, oh, I am welcome here, I have been thought about and I have been considered. So yeah, even if it is just welcome, then that's a lovely sort of way to start. And also just to say there's a huge amount that you can do without language, through gestures and kind of sign language. It's amazing how much you can convey. So my main bit of advice really would be to not worry about language too much. I think if you are able to have things translated, brilliant, but you can also use it as a sort of learning opportunity. So sort of as and when you do have people coming to the space that do speak other languages, then why not use a notepad and a pen and kind of go through, oh, we call this a wheelbarrow or a fork or whatever it is, what do you call it? And then you could even make up kind of labels in multiple languages so that everybody can learn what something is called in a range of languages, and sort of use it as an opportunity that way. And again, that sends that positive message, we're interested in you and what you've got to share, and it's about learning from you as much as you learning from us. But yeah, mainly not worrying about it too much would be my top tip. And I mean, my experience with working with people through the Syrian resettlement program was that in some instances people did also come with interpreters, and that is incredibly useful and really helps sort of reduce and break down some of the barriers that are there. But most people will not have sort of access to that kind of resource. So yeah, just sort of not worry about it, and being friendly and conveying things through sign languages is really appropriate.
And just to add to that, I've had an approach from a charity who've got some activity sheets available in different languages that they've used in other settings, which I need to forward on to Sophie and Alison to have a look at, to see if they want to maybe host on their side of the Gardens of Sanctuary, and we can host on ours, that might be a useful icebreaker in some circumstances of a way of using those to show people some activities they can do in that they can fully look at in a language that they might have reading skills in, etc. And that might be something that you could use to support some of that as well. So yeah, that's just come through to me the other day, so we can hopefully have a conversation about that and maybe get that added to the resources and things. But I'd also say we welcome suggestions. as Sophie and Ben did a lot of research and work around the resource pack, but we always welcome suggestions and feedback and ideas. And if people have come up with things that work or they would like to suggest, we're happy to add them as a case study or as an example on the website, or a news item about things people are doing, so we can start to, very much around the concept of sharing. If you or another organization you're working with has a suggestion that works, we'll happily share it with others to see if they can make it work too. So that's very much part of the conversation, and we want this to be a continuing conversation, not just a one-off sort of session in that sense.
I'd really, really echo that. When Ben and I were setting all this up initially, we were very aware that we didn't want to sort of brand ourselves, as it were, as the experts in this. This has been a process of gathering kind of information and best practice from as many different people as we can, and sharing it, as you say. I just wanted to pick up that somebody in the chat had highlighted Google Translate, which, yes, is a really, really helpful tool. I've not used it a lot, to be honest, but I know a lot of people do, just to sort of get that quick like important keyword translation. Alison, I wondered, there was another element to Rachel's question about like common mistakes.
Yeah, I thought that would feed in quite nicely there. I mean, particularly what you were talking there about the work that you embedded was, making a start and getting things out there. I think that probably sums up your answer, really, as it is about just having a go and having that very welcoming and open and willingness to learn. But any other things that you wanted to raise specifically about Rachel said, are there any common mistakes that people make when they're trying to be welcoming that aren't welcoming?
I mean, I guess I wouldn't necessarily sort of call or talk about mistakes, but I think there was definitely some things that I might raise there, and maybe Nikki will have some other ones. Some things that we came across quite a lot, which are really, really understandable, are people, especially when working with a group of people who might be living very chaotic, very difficult lives. I guess, in my background, working with the volunteers that I worked with, I didn't work with people who were at risk of destitution, for example, or who'd come from conflict zones. And so I think it's a common approach for people like us who want to be welcoming, who want to be helpful, who are kind, who want to do good in the world, to try and fix everything. And I think that would be one of the things that we'd really advise against. And we certainly talk about this in the resource pack, of being aware before you start through this process of potentially becoming accredited or working with refugees and asylum seekers, of being aware of what you can offer in terms of the services and the support, and what you can't. So it's very important that people, don't suddenly start feeling like they have to give out housing advice, or they have to be providing psychotherapy, for people who are traumatized. And so understanding where to get that support, whether that's through national organizations that we refer to in the sort of the report and the resource pack, but also becoming really aware and doing some research about what is available in your local area, whether that's through a local City of Sanctuary group or a local refugee organization. There are some large national charities and organizations, but there's lots of small groups as well. So working out, what support you can provide, and then where the gaps are, what somebody else can do. I mean, and I know that Ben, for example, in order to combat that we want to fix everything approach in some of his volunteers at the Grange, they set up a really short induction, because he would have, I think he had a volunteer whose background was in social work, and so when he would be working with the sanctuary seekers, his initial he wanted to sit them down and go, right, tell me everything, let's fix this. And that you just, you're potentially opening a can of worms. It's not appropriate or safe in some cases to do that. So being very aware of your sort of boundaries, setting boundaries as an individual and as an organization, as I said, and really importantly, not not giving out legal advice, so asylum advice. So knowing whereabouts somebody can get that, but the asylum system is very, very complex, and so I would not recommend anybody try and sort of puzzle it out and then give advice. So there's definitely a few things that we go through in the kind of literature that I can see why people would want to do those things in the spirit of being helpful, but to before they embark on this sort of work, to step back and think those through a bit more fully, if that's
Thanks,
helpful.
Sophie.
Have you got anything to add to that, Nikki?
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo a lot of what Sophie has said, in that I think one of the first things that people should be thinking about is there a local City of Sanctuary group? You know, you might be a City of Sanctuary group and you want to support local gardens. You can make contact with local gardens and open spaces to see if they want to get involved. If you are a garden or open space and you're thinking about becoming involved with this kind of project, is there a local City of Sanctuary group? There's details of all the groups on our website, but you know, we can help link you up and introduce you. But also, if there's not, because there isn't everywhere, you know, what is happening in your local area, your local voluntary sort of services or somewhere might be able to tell you whether there's charities or things doing that kind of work in your local area if you're not able to find out. And make sure that you link up with what is already happening, and that part of that embedding and sharing is very much around being aware of what you can do, what other people can do. And one of the key things we talk about in the resource pack is around signposting, is, you know, being aware of what challenges people might be facing as part of the asylum system. And there's, you know, we've talked a little bit about that today, and thinking about who is available locally that you can signpost people to, but also about taking care of yourself and others you're working with and your own, you know, mental health and other things, because you don't want to be taking on the whole range of someone else's challenges that they're facing, because the asylum system is distressing for a lot of people. And you know, as individuals and as organizations, you have to be able to support yourselves as well, so that you can best welcome other people. And this very much is around, you know, being welcoming and offering that place of where you can befriend and support people. But in order to do that, you do need to know what else is happening and where people can go to if they are genuinely stuck, and maybe you're the place that they've come to because they like coming and hanging out in your garden and chatting to people. But again, you know, if there's a local City of Sanctuary group, they'd be happy to talk to you about what's happening locally. But if not, you know, we can look at linking you up with other things that are happening. And please do feel free to be in contact and to ask questions if you are in that position of wanting to find out more.
I'd just, you know, echo again the whole sort of working in partnership with local organisations, and I think that can be such a relief as well. I mean, when embarking on this, there can be a real fear of like, oh my God, now we have to know everything, we have to become asylum experts. And whilst yes, you know, that learning about the asylum system is very much part of this process, we are not expecting people to become experts. And I mean, if you look through the case studies, it seems to be that most of the groups who've worked successfully with sanctuary seekers have done that in partnership with local organisations who specialise in offering that kind of support, because there can be that like continuity of experience, of contact. People might be very, very apprehensive about first coming to your site. They might not feel, even if you've got all the welcome sort of flags out, they might not feel that it's a space for them that is safe. And so potentially coming initially through a partner organisation that they're already familiar with, who has a broader understanding of their situation and of their needs, that can be a really useful way to kind of initially engage. And then, you know, your organisation, your group has that backing, has that support of working in partnership with somebody that's there to more specifically support their needs. Alison, I don't know if we've got time for any other questions.
We haven't actually had any other raised, so this might be a world first when we finish a Gardens of Sanctuary session on time. We've just got a couple of resources to share with you. So if you do think of any questions after this, then please just ping us an email, and we'll get back to you as best we can and as quickly as we can. Nikki, do you want to just talk about Celebrating Sanctuary, and then there's a couple of contact details for you there, isn't there?
Yep, so we are hosting a Celebrating Sanctuary Week in April, in less than a month now. We have a launch event on the 19th of April. And what it is to invite groups, City of Sanctuary groups, but also people involved in our streamed work, which includes Gardens of Sanctuary, to share and celebrate positive stories of welcome from their local communities. So it's very much a week where we are looking at celebrating what is happening in local communities and local organisations. And there'll be quite a lot happening for us. As I said, there's a launch event, but we'll be having lots of things happening online, things on our social media and various other things. So please do look out for that and keep in touch around that. And Alison, if you want to move on to the second slide. So if you want to find out more about us, our website is just cityofsanctuary.org, but there's a specific contact us page where you can find all of our contact details. I think myself and my colleague Sarah have put our contact details in the chat, and I've dropped in the chat as well the Gardens of Sanctuary email address that we have. We will also have an events page, so other City of Sanctuary events that we are hosting will be put up on there. And there's also recordings of previous events that we've hosted, including the awards workshop, and events for different streams of Sanctuary and different elements of our work. We've done some things recently around the media and social media and other things, and they're all available for you to watch back at a time of your leisure. And the Gardens of Sanctuary website is specifically gardens.cityofsanctuary.org. And as Sophie said, we both organisations host the resource pack and various other information, and we will happily share news stories or examples of things people are doing on that website, so that the rest of the wider Gardens of Sanctuary stream can see what's happening. So yeah, I think that's my 2 slides.
Thanks, Nikki. Just quickly as well, we run monthly webinars for our members. This is which was one, which is lovely, just an opportunity for organisations we work with and our members themselves to share their experiences and what they're doing. So not at all related to the sanctuary process, but maybe useful for gardens. So we've got one on the 20th of April about growing connections with schools, and then a second one in May all around creating a video tour of your site, particularly focused on getting ready for Have a Grow Day, which is on the 5th of June, where some groups may not be able to open up their spaces fully, so offering virtual experiences. We also have a Facebook group, which has been really lively over the past 12 months in particular. If you are looking at starting up going through the kind of Gardens of Sanctuary process, or looking to welcome people seeking sanctuary into your space a bit more proactively, that might be a really good space to raise some of those initial questions with any other groups who are already going through it. And then just to close, I think Sophie's going to close for us. I'd like to just say thank you so much to Sophie and to Nikki for sharing your knowledge and experiences with us this morning, and thank you to everyone who's participated in the chat and by listening, and we wish you all the best as you undertake this process to welcome more people into your space, or get more people gardening. Sophie, over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alison, for doing everything to organise. I just thought of a really very quick anecdote that I wanted to share, and it goes back a few years from when I was running a garden, and we had a gentleman who came over with his family from Syria, and I got to know him a little bit because he happened to end up living next door to one of my best friends. And I remember really clearly one day him saying to me that the reason why he came to us was because for that hour or whatever that he was there with us, he wasn't a refugee, he wasn't Syrian, he wasn't anything. He was a gardener, and he loved being able to have that escape and be a gardener just like the rest of us. And so I'm really thrilled that so many people joined today, and it's been wonderful to be able to share kind of the resources that we've got. So again, thanks everyone for participating, and yeah, we look forward to hearing from you again. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.